It's not mine.
But tell me, you didn't mention the trumpets in the base of Migdosh.
The trumpets are all the wind instruments.
So that's like the shofar?
No, the shofar we said is the keter. No, with the trumpet you can make mamish music. That's the difference between the shofar and
they had the trumpets which called Moshe Rabbeinu, and were only allowed to be used at the time when Moshe Rabbeinu was alive. So that's not keter?
I don't know. Maybe it is because they used them. They were simple. They didn't have holes.
Right.
So maybe they're like the shofar.
No, there was only one note.
So maybe like the shofar. So the trumpets we have today are definitely wind instruments.
We're not talking about that.
Okay. So we said that Kol Baalei Ashir Yotzim B'Shir. Page 14.
Okay, let's get started. And then we're on 14. Can you narrow it down a little bit?
So
very good. Okay, good.
So again, this is the 7th generation from Cain, 8th generation from Adam. This was the last generation of Cain. No, I said it wrong. It's the 5th generation from Cain, and the 7th generation. No, Lemech is the 7th generation from Adam, and Yaval and Yuval are his two sons, and Naamah, his daughter, and Tuval Cain, her brother, are all the 8th generation of Cain and the last generation of Cain. There was no more from Cain anymore after that, because then there was the flood. So we said that in order to move from one level to another, there has to be an ayin in between. There has to be a nullification, some kind of nothingness in between. And that is what music does. Because we said the music has two parts to it. On the one hand, it cancels out whatever you're holding by at that moment, however you're understanding things at that moment. It elevates you to a higher level, sort of like a source of inspiration.
But it's service, no?
It awakens you to go up.
So that must take everything you've got with you with it.
Maybe later you find out that there was some transfer, but the original feeling is one of that what I had before is gone, and I'm now in a different place. It soothes me. It makes me calm. It makes me not worried about the past. And then we said that that was the reason why the Levim used to play music while the korbanos were being shechted, because that was the elevation that was required by the person who was bringing the korban. That was the nullification. It wasn't the act of the korban itself by itself that was enough.
Every korban that played music, even korban chatas?
They played music for the tmidim.
For the which?
For the daily korbanos that were brought. For the tamid.
What else?
That's it.
Yeah,
and the tmidin and musafin, those were the ones that and during the shechting of korban pesach, so they also apparently played music.
They played halal.
That was the halal, right? So so the halal was like during the time of the additional musafin. In any case, so then we saw that the Zohar calls this a simple song, a double song, a triple song, and a quadruple song, and we said that these are the 4 different types of instruments. And that's so that we have the quadruple song.
There was only there were 4 different types of
there's
instruments.
tof and kino and nevil.
So they played together.
And ugav.
They played all together, all playing.
Yeah, they all played together. I don't understand enough of music theory, but I've heard a number of times that the argument would be that in the Beis Hamikdash there was no harmony, there was only melody, and that would probably make a big difference. In any case,
there's a whole book that was written by Mintz, on musical instruments and their associated levels. And
really?
Guides Mintz. It's a whole. It goes through every instrument and which spirit it's associated with and everything.
So we said that the beat is the habit. Maybe even habit comes from beat, or beat comes from habit. Hard to know in English. So
there's a guy in Sven will tell you about that. What's his name? Guy is a music guy. There's all these lectures on music.
So the beats, the keeping the rhythm, and the whole percussion section of the orchestra, that's the 4 lower sfirot. That's called the quadruple song, the nehim. Netzachot Yisod Melchut. And then we said that the string instruments are the emotive triple song of loving kindness, might, and beauty. We said that in the string instruments there's always two extremes, and then where you make the music is in the middle, in the beauty. And then we have the wind instruments, which are the intellectual sfirot, the shir kafur, chokhmah and bina, wisdom and understanding. And finally the shofar, and you added now maybe even the chatzotzot, the trumpets that were in the temple. They're the shir pashut. They're the keter, where there's no complexity to it. It's just a simple one note, and it comes from a place that's called the inner sound, kol kala pnima, in the language of the Zohar. In any case, so why do we need all of these? So in the second paragraph, third line,
Maybe wind instruments were wood. I don't know if they had metallic wood wind instruments then.
Trumpets,
I don't know. In the time the base made this, did trumpets?
Moshe Rabbeinu's trumpets are made out of gold.
But they don't have any holes in them.
Okay.
I think like Ugav was the flutes were wooden. I think. Anyway.
So why do we need all four of these? Because each one describes a different type of bittul, meaning intellectual bittul, intellectual self-nullification is different than emotive self-nullification or nullification, which is different than habitual. If you want to start a new habit, you want to unlearn an old one, so you need music to that. Okay? So we said that the clock keeps your time for you. So it gives you the rhythm for habits. It allows you to create good habits. That's what the clock basically is. It's a percussion instrument. So there's different levels of bittul, and as you go up from one to the next, the intensity increases. יש בחינת ביטול פשוט נקודה אחת, בחינת יוד. ויש בחינת ביטול שנכלל בזה גם מידות בחינת אהבה או יראה. So there's a bittul that is only one simple point. That's like the yud. Now he's saying it in yud ke vav ke. And then there's a bittul that's the vav, and it includes all the midos. וכן בחיצוניות המידות, שהן חסד וגבורה, יש התקללות גם כן חסד שבגבורה, כמו המכה את בנו שהוא בחינת גבורה, ונכנע בזה בחינת חסד ואהבה, שמלחמת האהבה רצונו דרכו בדרך הישר, ולכן מכה דייקה בנו, ולא אחר, כי את אשר יאהב יוכיח. And so a person, if he's going to chastise anybody, he's going to chastise his son. He's not going to chastise his neighbor's son. Even though he might, yell at him, don't do this, but it's not coming from a point of chastisement. It's more like, just stop. But to educate, to teach, so that he'll do for his own son, because that's coming from the gvura in Ahava. So what he's saying is that for there to be any kind of complexity within the midos, you have to have bittul. So the bittul that's in the nehim, in that sense, is bringing all four sfirot, netzach, hod, yesod, malchut, together to be able to have itkalalut. And that's something that he talks about everywhere. That the difference between olam hatikun and olam hatov is that there's no itkalalut. The difference between the world of chaos and the world of rectification, our world, where there are complex coming together of opposite facets or different facets, and that's called itkalalut, inter-inclusion, that can only be made possible by a sense of nullification. That each part, each facet, each characteristic is willing to give itself up in order to join the whole.
In sports, they say there's no I in team.
Right. I guess that only works in English. Core is also in there.
There's also no I in
French.
Tzevet.
Yeah. So the one example is that a person strikes his son out of love. So his love is foregoing itself. It's giving itself up in order to connect with the might that is needed at that moment in order to chastise. And obviously doing it the right way is the most important thing, because maybe the chastisement also doesn't know how to give up its strength. So it doesn't know how to do real bittul. It doesn't know how to really nullify itself. And then it turns out to be more striking than love. So if the child doesn't feel in equal measures that this is really done, it's really not itkalalut, it's not really the world of rectification.
Right. And his code creates a synergy,
right,
which is going to be higher.
So it says the simple type of nullification is the one that's associated with the keter, with the simple song, the single song. וכשיש בזה עוד מידה אחת, אהבה או יראה, נקרא שיר כפול. So now it's very interesting. He's not going the way that it's usually explained. It's usually explained, like we said, keter is the pashut, intellect is the kaful, is the double, because there's two sfirot there, and then so on. Now he's saying, no, the moment that I add one more sfira, that's already called a shir kaful. It can be any sfira. It doesn't have to be necessarily the intellect. What the Zohar is saying is that the natural state of the intellect is that it's in dialogue. All intellect develops out of dialogue. That's like my wife woke me up today for some reason with Jordan Peterson. I don't know why she saw some video from him. And so I thought about that right away. He's such a staunch protector of free speech, of dialogue, because he's an intellectual. And intellectuals can't thrive without dialogue, because that's how the brain itself works. There has to be a dialogue between the left and the right. So that type of bittul is necessary. So what he's really protecting is, he's protecting his bittul. He's saying, if I don't have dialogue, if I only have one side of the argument and I don't hear the other one, then my mind is not advancing. That's the type of advancement that's called deductive reasoning. Meaning that I have to, in order to advance the argument, I have to hear two sides. There has to be a thesis and an antithesis. There's obviously other types of thinking that don't require that are very, you could call it inductive. That there's just one thought that develops, and it's not in dialogue with anything yet. In any case, so here he says, just adding another midah, even to keter, would be called shir kafur. וכשיש התקללות המידות, now when we have all three midos together, אהבה ויראה, גם שניהם בביטול, so we have the keter, or we have the tiferet, whatever is on the middle axis, and we add to it two more midot, then that's called shir משולש. נקרא שיר משולש. בדרך זה יש גם כן שיר מרובע. So like in the four midos that we talked about, נהים, נצח, הוד, יסוד, מלכות, so the yesod and malchut there are like the middle axis. There are two of them already. And they add to them the netzach and hod, so you have all four together. That's called the quadruple song. And so these are different levels of nullification that allow more and more complex feelings and thoughts and entities to exist in the world. כי כארבע רוחות השמיים פרסתי אתכם. I have really strewn you about to the four corners of the earth, of the
this
heavens.
Is the four rivers as well.
What?
This is the four
Good,
rivers.
also, same thing. That they come out of one thing, and then the question is whether they rejoin, whether
So
they're able to
it's
rejoin.
also the four minim of the Lulav Esrei.
So there we're taking the four things and bringing them together. That's the Itkalalut. The four rivers, they don't come back together. They start from one point, then they become Alma de Piruda. They become a world of separation. So really the four rivers
Are the inverse.
right, they symbolize how the world was created in that sense, as separate entities. So now he's coming into something that's very, very complex. I hope he says more than just two sentences, because it's a very hard topic. He says, התקללות מצפון לדרום על ידי הרוח המנשב מצפון לדרום, וכן ממזרח למערב. ולפעמים יש התקללות כל הארבע בחינות, מזרח, מערב, צפון ודרום, על ידי הרוח המנשב כך. Okay, so this is where it becomes complex. There's a whole topic that he develops he started developing it in Lajna before he came to Liadi. And it has to do with the directions of the world, north, south, east, and west, and that they correspond in some way to the Sfirot, but it's not clear exactly how they correspond. So the simple explanation that he gives always is Tzafon and Darom are Bina and Chochma, because that's what the Chazal said. הרוצה להשאיר yatzpin, רוצה להחכים ידרים. So we have the simple idea that there's wealth in the north and there's wisdom in the south. So that's a good start to say that wisdom is south and north is bina. Understanding why? Because bina is always very wealthy. It's wealthy in particulars, whereas wisdom takes everything and makes it into one thing. Bina is a separation. Mina dinin mitarim. There's many dinim. So like halacha would be entirely bina. Okay, it's entirely, obviously it goes all the way down to malchus. In this case, it even sounds like malchus. Halacha. It's the same lamed chet. But so that's the simple. Then east and west. What do you do with these two? So the simple thing is chesed and gvura. That's the easiest way to understand it. Or Yesod and Malchut. He goes between the two of them, and it's a very complex topic, and he has many verses in the Tanakh that deal with the directions and what they symbolize. But then there's this very interesting thing that the winds are what combine the two, and so the winds are like if you have a northerly wind,
from one to
right?
the
They
other.
go from one to the other, so they're like an axis that connects them. So the ability to so what do we have in this world? So between Chochmah and Bina we have a horizontal axis. That would be like either a northerly wind or a southerly wind. Either it's bringing the south to the north or the north to the south. And then when there's an easterly wind or a westerly wind, so same idea, that you have something that's connecting the east and the west, chesed and gvura, let's say. But then there's also northeast wind, okay, which means that it's a shir merubah. That's something that's bringing all four directions together, because it's starting in the southwest and it's going to the northeast. So that diagonal is a far greater type of bittul. Today is the yortzeit of the Bereshis. So the Bereshis in Lushas Levi, he has another meditation on this, and he writes that the word diagonal in Hebrew means to see the nothingness. How does he get that? Because alachson. First of all, it's not a word in Hebrew. It's a Greek word. I don't know what the Greek word was, but it's not from Hebrew.
Sounds like axis.
Something like that. So he reads it listakel ayin. That's how he. Alachson, like the aleph nun, the beginning and end, or like the ayin, and lachs is listakel, sachal, to see. So it's to see the nothingness. So he says the more complex something is, and you're able to elevate it, you're able to nullify it, you're able to see what keeps it together, the more you can see the nothingness that's beyond what there is in the world. The more you can see what's holding the world together, you see the real glue of the world. Okay, so this is
quantum Hasidus.
something like that. Well, it would be maybe more like navigational Hasidus, dealing with what kind of winds you have, and thinking about what kind of
And
bittul.
the north wind is supposed to be cruel. Achazari. North wind. So where's the Achazari wind coming?
I guess because it's leaning towards the north. And
No, it comes from the north to the south.
The winds are the
wind
opposite.
comes from.
When you say a
north.
northerly wind, you mean it's coming from the south to the north.
Yeah, but here is mitzvah
That's
the
how
Rome
they-
is a southerly wind that's going to the
meteorologists.
north.
What?
A wind going mitzvah on the
Good,
Rome is going
here
to be
he
a
said-
southerly wind that's going to go
Right.
from the north to the south.
Right.
But I mean, it's very. He doesn't. I mean, maybe I missed the words, but why did you put this into the Mochen as opposed to just go with we just did Sukkot for a whole week, into just Midos?
Because the whole topic until now was midos, so I'm just translating the directions into.
That's why I
into
translate
midos.
directions. The Rome is Chesed and Safon is
That's another option.
where.
I'm saying it's a big topic, like how to draw the parallel between the directions and the midos. It's not one simple. There's not one way to do it.
Maybe he's doing both at the same time, and that's why he's just leaves
Maybe.
it.
וזהו גם כן עניין הליכת השמש ממזרח למערב. Same thing. Why? Because to go from east to west is עניין הביטול. It's mevatel itself. It's nullifying itself. So everything that has a direction, you can learn from the direction in what state it is. So the sun rising in the east and traveling to the west. So here we would have to say that it would be like Yesod and Malchut, that the Malchus is in the west. Okay. It would be hard to say here that it's Chesed and Gvura, because it's not going to Gvura. But it's going to nullify itself, like it had, like to become nothing, like Malchus, which becomes a point under the Yesod. It becomes a point under the foundation. So that movement for the sun is an expression of its nullification. Obviously, this is not something physical. It's something in the if you want, in the psyche of the sun, as it were. And everything has some kind of will, some kind of something that it wants. Otherwise, it would not be moving. So is the sun moving or not moving?
The sun moves because Hashem told it to. It's bittul. It nullifies itself.
Okay, so there was a very interesting thing that everything in the sky goes from east to west, right? Because that's how the Earth rotates. So it all goes from east to west. But it's not that simple, because even if you take it as it's the Earth that's rotating, and it's not the objects in the sky that are moving around the Earth. They're not surrounding it. They're not circling it. So you still have something, when this was discovered, you still have something else going on by all these objects that is taking them from east to west. They're still rotating. What's the rotation? So for a long time it wasn't known. It was just speculated. But once the Greeks developed a whole picture of things rotating, it's very interesting. It wasn't completely precluded by Copernicus. It was just changed. The axis of rotation was changed, but they're still rotating. And everything is still rotating. In fact, it's so common that things are rotating that one of the points of quantum mechanics was that to find something standing still is an anomaly. There's nothing like that in the world. We don't find anything standing still. Everything is rotating at some level. So you have on particles, basic particles, we have something called spin. So it doesn't really mean they're spinning because they have no size. But the only way to describe it is angular change, meaning that it's angular energy. We're seeing it, we're measuring it, and it looks exactly the same as something spinning, or a top spinning, or something spinning around, rotating something. Everywhere we look, everything is spinning, everything is moving. And there's two different directions. It can be plus or minus. So which one is? So let's say if we look at the Earth, which direction will we say? From east to west, we would say that's the nullification. From west to east would be that I'm gaining in my yeshut, in my being. I'm gaining. So that way you could think about and align all the spinning in the world, which is everything. All the planets are rotating around the sun, revolving around the sun. The sun itself is rotating around the center of the galaxy. The galaxy itself is apparently rotating also, because it's like a spiral that's constantly spinning. So everything is exhibiting one way or the other. So the usual explanation is that counterclockwise is what we call losing yeshut. It's becoming nullified. The counterclockwise, and the clockwise is what's called adding yeshut to whatever it is.
It's very interesting with the dancing. If you look at Hasidim,
right?
Hasidim always dance counterclockwise.
They try.
But Lubavitchers and Datilimi almost always dance clockwise.
Really? So what is this about the sun? So he says, the sun, what do I mean when I say it's nullifying? B'chinat nefesh shebashemesh. Hu b'chinat hasagata. Meaning at some level the sun is interacting at a psychological level. And so the body of the sun, because of that, because the psyche is experiencing God in some way, godliness in some way, the body of the sun is always going b'chinat bitul. It's always going to nullify itself. It's always from east to west. What does he say there? He says, how was Yeshua able to stop the sun? Because he did the bittul for it. If you don't want the sun, if you don't want something else to move, if you want it to stand still, you have to have more bittul than it does. You have to have more of a sense of nullification than the object you want to stop. So, for instance, it's a very interesting thing that when you're talking to people, if you want them to stop talking, so people try to overpower each other. So I'll talk faster, I'll talk more. But the thing that really makes somebody listen, stop, and unable to talk, is if you have real bittul inside. That's called yiras shamayim. When a person has real fear of heaven, real sensitivity to God, and to being nullified before Him, so people listen. It's an incredible thing. If he's not listening, if they're not listening, it's a problem with your nullification. Because somebody has to act here. Somebody has to do something here. So if you take over all the nullification, everything is focused on you. Everything moves to you. Because you become the center of nullification in that group or wherever you are.
Gimel Thomas, by the way.
What?
Was the Shamash?
Yeah, right. There are two opinions on how the sun moved. Was it because of love, that it wants to reach the west? Is it looking to reach the west? Or is it just bittul? Simple nullification. And when you're nullified, naturally you'll move towards the west. So this is connected very much to this. Today is the day that we finish Seder Kodshim in Daf Yomi. So after 2.5 years, so it's a very long Seder, 11 Masechtot. So we finished it today. Today's the final day. Daf Lamed Zayin in Meila, which is really the last few Mishnayos of Midos, of Masechet Midos. So Masechet Midot includes a very interesting Mishnah. It says there in the Mishnah that our forefathers, when they were in this place, meaning on the Temple Mount, so they used to point their backside to the west and their front side to the east. So they would worship, as it were, the rising sun. That's the simple meaning. But we are turned around, because the temple was built in such a way that when you were bowing down towards the temple, you were bowing towards the west, not towards the east. So it's as if you're bowing down to the setting sun. So somebody would say, what's the big difference? In either case, the sun's both in the east. You're bowing down when it rises, or you're bowing down when it sets. But when you add this into it, you begin to understand what the difference is. That when you're bowing down to the east, the rising sun represents Yeshut. It represents a sense of self-importance, of kind of trying to build yourself up, to make yourself into somebody important. When you bow down to the west, that's real bittul. So it's what are you trying to do?
In 1787, at the close of the Constitutional Convention, George Washington said there was an image of the sun carved into one of the chairs, and he said, "I've often wondered if it was
an
image of a rising sun or a setting sun, and I now see that it is a rising sun."
You should.
Right. That was the foundation of the United States of America.
The sun doesn't have a choice. He made it.
No, so we're saying that its nefesh is that way, that it's yearning to go to the west.
But it's interesting when he talks about motivation here of the sun. He gives two.
Yeah.
He gives two options. He gives an option of bittul and an option
And
of
ava,
chukka.
chukka.
He doesn't give. There's a third option that he doesn't mention, which is running away from where he was.
So the son apparently is not running away from it.
Yeah. So,
Maybe it's running away from a tishut. That would be like bittul.
no, but
Bittul would be like maybe I'm running away
I
from
don't
my
think I
shutzi.
think bittul's different.
And then
different.
chukka is I'm running towards
Bittul
it.
is out. It's not. It's different animal. The negative motivation is not the push factor is not a that's not shaykh to the son.
Say that.